Sell the fat girl. She eats like 3 grown men. The woman's voice cuts across the parlor like a knife. Mabel Doyle stands stiff by the doorway, corset biting into her ribs, while her stepmother doesn't even glance at her. The older woman's eyes stay on the man with the frayed ledger in his hands. I heard that miner up on Cane Ridge will pay a good sum, she snaps. He wants a wife who can work and stand the cold. We have exactly that, don't we? On the bed, the half-sister yanks the corset strings tighter, watching herself in the mirror instead of the girl she is lacing. Who else? She giggles. Big frame, big appetite. Carries water, hauls wood. She was made for hard work and bad weather. Mabel grips the edge of the table to keep from falling. Each breath is short and sharp. She hears every word. Sell. Pay. Big frame, as if they are talking about a mule. Her father shifts in the doorway, eyes on the ledger, not on his daughter. He hesitates, then nods the way he always nods when he is too tired to fight. If he pays enough to clear the debt, he mutters, send her. The wagon comes tomorrow. Tell her to smile. A man willing to take that on is doing her a favor. The conversation drifts down the hall, their voices fading. Mabel stays where she is, lungs burning inside whalebone and laces, eyes dry because even her tears feel wasted here. That night, on the sagging bed in the corner, she makes herself a quiet promise. They can sell her name out of the ledger. They will not sell the last piece of her soul. Far above the valley, on the dark spine of Cane Ridge, a lone light burns in a small wooden cabin. A miner in his 40s sits at a rough table, a single letter from the lowlands open under his hand. Big-built girl, strong, used to hard work, eats well, suited for cold country. No photograph, no pretty words, just facts and a price. His name is Wyatt Kane, and he has no idea that the fat girl they are sending up his mountain is about to turn his quiet winter and his life into something he never planned for. The wagon came at dawn, wheels crunching over frost and old straw. Mabel walked out under a sky the color of tin, her small bundle of clothes in one hand, the other pressed to the stitches biting into her ribs. No one came to the yard to see her off. Her stepmother called out from the kitchen to remind the driver about the money. Her father stayed at the table with his ledger. Her half-sister watched from an upstairs window, lifting the curtain just enough to see, not enough to be seen. The driver was an old man with a beard like gray rope and a limp that made every step look painful. He took one long look at Mabel, from her strong shoulders to the skirts that still did their best to hide the width of her hips. You the one for Cane Ridge? He asked. Mabel nodded. Her tongue felt thick. Words sat in her chest and refused to move. He studied her a moment longer, then shrugged. Well, mountain is steep. Good thing you look like you can climb. It was the first sentence that did not cut. She climbed into the back of the wagon. The boards were cold. The road out of town ran between fields that used to need her hands and back and legs. She watched the house until it disappeared. No one stepped outside. No one waved. When the town was only a smear behind them, the old man clicked his tongue at the horses and spoke without turning. Long way up there, he said. Cold, too. I know, Mabel answered. Got any choice in this? He asked. She thought about lying. Then she looked at her hands, the calluses, the scar on one knuckle where a pot had slipped. This is the first thing I get to choose, she said. I am not going back. The old man nodded, like that was the only answer he had been willing to haul up the mountain. The climb to Cane Ridge took the whole day and half the night. The air grew thinner. The world dropped away behind them. Pines closed in on either side, dark and tall, branches heavy with old snow. Mabel's breath came shorter, but her legs did not quit. When the wagon finally stopped, the stars were hard and sharp above a cut in the trees. A single cabin squatted near a dark hole in the rock. A lamp burned in the window. The man who opened the door was broader than she expected and more tired. His hair was threaded with silver at the temples. He had the kind of face that had once been handsome and now was only set. A pale scar cut from his cheekbone to his jaw. He looked at the driver first, then at Mabel. His eyes ran over her, not lingering in the places other men stared. He seemed to be weighing something. "You Kane?" the driver asked. The man nodded. "Wyatt Kane. You brought her." He reached for his pocket and pulled out a folded packet of notes. Mabel felt her stomach turn, as if she were back in the parlor. "Hold on," the driver said. "You settle that with her now. She is not a crate. She hears every word same as I do." Wyatt's eyes flicked to her again, sharper now. He stood in the doorway, big shoulders blocking the light. "You know why you are here?" he asked. Mabel forced herself to meet his gaze. "My family owed money. They sold a wife to clear it. You wanted someone who could work. I can work." Wyatt stared at her a long beat. Then he lifted the packet of notes and, still looking at her, spoke to the driver. "This is for the debt," he said. "Not for her. I do not buy people." The old man grunted, satisfied, and took the money. "Fair enough," he said. "Mountain will remember if you lie." When the wagon rattled away into the trees, Mabel stood alone on the hard ground, breath fogging in the cold. Wyatt stepped back from the doorway. "Come in," he said. "You will freeze out there." The cabin was small but solid. A stove glowed in the corner, throwing out a deep heat that smelled of pine resin and coal dust. There was a table, 2 chairs, a narrow bed pressed under the window, and a pallet rolled against the far wall. Wyatt took a clean folded shirt and a pair of pants from a trunk, along with thick wool socks. "You will die in that thing," he said, nodding at her corset and skirts. "Change into these. There is water in the basin. Supper when you are done." Mabel wrapped her arms around herself. "This is all I have," she said quietly. "Then it is time you had something else," he answered. "You are not a parlor decoration up here." He turned his back and busied himself at the stove, giving her the small privacy the cabin allowed. Her fingers shook as she worked the laces free. When the corset dropped away, she felt air reach parts of her lungs it had not touched in years. She slipped into the shirt, the pants, the socks. Everything was a little tight at the seams and still looser than any dress she had worn since childhood. When she stepped to the stove, Wyatt glanced over, then nodded once. "Better," he said. "Sit. Eat." The stew was thick with beans and bits of meat. Mabel did not realize how hungry she was until the first spoonful hit her tongue. Wyatt watched the steam, not her face. "We work early," he said. "There is ore to move and shoring to fix before the snows come again. Up here everyone pulls their weight. That is the deal. You work, you eat, you get your share when the gold comes out of the rock. You do not, you go back down when the pass opens. So I am not trapped," Mabel said. He shook his head. "You are no more trapped than I am." The next morning the mountain showed her teeth. Ice rasped under her boots as they crossed to the mouth of the mine. The opening yawned black, breath cold on her face. Wyatt handed her a pair of rough gloves and pointed to the sled stacked with sacks of broken rock. "From the chute to the tailings," he said. "Fill the sled, drag it to that pile, dump it, come back. Steady and straight. Do not run. The ground will take you if you hurry." The other men watched from the shadows, faces lined, eyes curious. One of them spat near his boot. "She will last an hour," he said under his breath. Mabel pretended not to hear. She wrapped the rope around her hands, planted her feet, and leaned her weight into the load. The sled groaned, moved a finger, then another, then began to slide. Her legs burned. The cold cut her lungs, but the rope stayed taut in her hands. Rock by rock, load by load, she carved a path between the mine mouth and the pile. By midday, sweat had soaked through the shirt and the back of her neck. Her hair stuck in damp ropes to her cheeks. She straightened for a moment, rolled her shoulders, and caught Wyatt watching her from the tunnel entrance. "She will break her back," one man muttered. "Her back is fine," Wyatt said. "Yours might be the one I worry about." No one laughed out loud, but the next time Mabel passed, the spitter moved aside to give her a clearer line. That night, her muscles screamed. Every part of her body throbbed with a deep ache that felt almost like music. She lay on the pallet under the window, staring at the dark rafters, and listened to the mountain wind move around the cabin. The pain meant the same thing it always had, but for the first time it came with no voices attached to it. No one called her greedy for eating, lazy for resting, clumsy for dropping. Up here, pain simply meant she had worked. Days folded into each other. The routine dug tracks through her like the sled through snow. Up at first light, stew or bread, then hauling, stacking, clearing, tending to the small things that kept a mind from turning into a grave. Wyatt showed her how to watch the timbers inside the tunnel, how to listen to the way the rock spoke before it shifted. His words were few, but when he corrected her grip on a tool or pointed to a hairline crack in a beam, his touch was careful and brief. One evening, a storm rolled over Cane Ridge so fast it felt like the sky had changed its mind about them. Snow hammered the roof. Wind screamed at the shutters. They had just come out of the tunnel when the sound changed. A deep, wrong groan rose from the earth. Wyatt stopped so sharply that she bumped into his back. "Inside!" he snapped. "Now!" But the groan became a roar. The entrance timbers shivered. The ground under their boots trembled, then jumped. A spray of rock burst from the tunnel mouth. One of the men still inside screamed. Mabel did not think. She ran for the cable on the winch, grabbed it in both hands, and braced her feet. Debris shot past her. The air filled with chalk and dust. Someone yelled that the mountain was coming down. She could barely hear. "Hold that line!" Wyatt shouted, shoving a loop over the winch post. The cable jerked. It felt like some giant was trying to rip it out of her arms. She locked the rope across her hips, dug her heels into frozen mud, and leaned back with everything she had. Her shoulders burned. The gloves bit into her palms. The world shrank to the line and the weight on the other end. "Pull!" someone yelled. She pulled. She pulled until her teeth hurt. The sled under the cave-in shifted, then slid. A man's arm appeared, then a head coughing dust. Another body rolled free. By the time the shaking stopped, 2 men lay on the ground, coughing and swearing and very much alive. The third did not move. Wyatt knelt by him, hand on the limp wrist, jaw tight. Then he stood and looked at the others. "Get him covered," he said. "The rest of you thank her, not me, when you say your prayers tonight." Mabel realized her knees were shaking only when she tried to straighten. Her breath tore in and out. She met Wyatt's eyes across the ruined ground. There was no pity in them, only a measuring kind of respect. That night, when the storm finally moved off and the cabin settled into its usual creaks, Wyatt poured 2 cups of coffee and slid one across the table to her. "You held that line when everyone else let go," he said. I did not want them to die, she answered. He nodded. That is one reason. The other is you do not know how to quit. She stared at her hands, red and blistered where the gloves had failed. If I quit, I have to go back, she said. I will not go back. Good, he said. Because I intend to keep you on as long as you will stay. That means we settle your share proper. He took a small book from the shelf and opened it. Rows of figures marched down the pages. This is the mine ledger, he said. From now on, your name is in it next to mine. Certain cut of the gold, certain share of the losses. If that is too much responsibility for you, say so now. She snorted before she could stop herself. I have been carrying other people's weight my whole life. I can carry my own. He smiled then, a quick dry thing that changed his face more than she expected. Thought so, he said. 2 wagons reached Cane Ridge on an afternoon when the last snow still clung to the shadows. Mabel was stacking wood when she heard wheels on the trail and a voice she knew too well. I told you there would be money, her stepmother said. Men like that do not stay poor forever. Wyatt came up from the mine and stood beside Mabel. He did not ask. He just waited with her. The first wagon pushed into the clearing. Her father sat on the seat, hat too new for his coat. The stepmother climbed down, eyes moving over the cabin and the mine. Mabel, her father called, trying for warmth. Look at you. We came to bring you home. I am home, she said. The stepmother shook her head. You poor girl, she said loudly, for the men to hear. Work to the bone up here. We have decided to take you back where you belong. Of course, after all the sacrifice we made, we should talk about what is fair. Mabel turned without answering, walked into the cabin, and took down a small canvas bag. When she came back out, she set it on the chopping block. Coins bumped against each other inside. This is what you took when you sold me, she said. Your price for a daughter who eats like 3 men. Take it and go. Once you leave this ridge, you have nothing that belongs to me. You ungrateful girl, the stepmother hissed. We fed you, clothed you. You sold me, Mabel said. I am just closing the account. Her father grabbed for the bag without quite looking at her face. Wyatt lifted the mine ledger so everyone could see the ink on the page. This claim belongs to 2 people, he said. Wyatt Kane and Mabel Doyle. Partners. Anyone who wants gold from this mountain deals with both, or with neither. The half-sister, still on the wagon seat, snorted. So she thinks she is a man now, standing there in pants. Mabel let the words pass through her like cold air. I think I am finished being traded, she said. The trail down is behind you. It is not in front of me. No one answered. Then the trader who had driven their wagons cleared his throat. Light goes quick up here, he told her father. Best head down. Greed moved faster than pride. Her father clutched the bag and climbed back to the seat. The stepmother glared, the half-sister stared, and then the wagons turned. In a few moments the trees took them and the sound of the wheels was gone. Wyatt set the ledger on the block beside her. You handled that, he said. I only refuse to be sold twice, she replied. He smiled. Good. If the ore holds, more folk will come. I would rather they answered to you than to men like that. Mabel pictured other women stepping off wagons, women someone had called too big or too much, women whose backs and hands were stronger than anyone guessed. Then we make a rule, she said. No one here is for sale. First rule of Cane Ridge, Wyatt said. The sun dropped behind the jagged line of rock. Mabel picked up the axe. Wyatt handed her another log. They worked until the light thinned and the cabin windows glowed against the dark, a small, stubborn promise halfway up a mountain that now belonged to both of them.